I don't think you always have to go viral. I don't think you always have to jump on trends. Sometimes you don't even need to try, but you need to be consistent. Comedy legend Larry David built a multi-million-dollar reputation by just doing the same thing again and again with this ruthless consistency. At 42, he was broke, an angry comedian with a few high-profile writing gigs and a healthy dose of rejection. But then came Seinfeld, which was obviously a huge phenomenon. But then after that, he almost immediately disappeared. He didn't show up on red carpets. He didn't start his own TV show. He didn't launch company brands, drinks, all that kind of stuff. He quietly began building one of the most distinctive reputations in the history of television. So we're talking here about the least sexy, most powerful strategy for building a lasting reputation. And that is doing the same thing every day for a long time. I'm Mark Di-Toro, and for 20 years, I've worked with some of the world's most successful brands and impressive individuals. Now let's get into it. Through Curb Your Enthusiasm, Larry kept doing what Larry does best, being neurotic, contrarian, and brutally honest, in exactly the same tone, in exactly the same manner, on his terms, for more than 20 years. But people loved him for it. We all loved him for it. Some people hated him. But I think to Larry, that was the point. The important thing to remember, though, is that his influence didn't explode because of one moment. It really did compound quite invisibly, really. It kind of came out of nowhere through repetition. So I think what really makes Larry David special is that he didn't want to adapt. And he really doubled down on what he believed in, what he was about. After Seinfeld, which was actually nearly cancelled, by the way, in its first season, he could have really exploited that and become this media darling. But he quite frankly wasn't interested. Instead, he launched his own thing, Curb Your Enthusiasm, on HBO, which was really a show about nothing. And you may not know this, but it was in fact shot, well, each episode is shot without a script. He, of course, has a structure, and they'll go through the what they want to do within that episode, but there's no word-for-word script. He essentially pulled together an ensemble of his friends, all with this social awkwardness that we love so much, and that antisocial charm, let's say, and then these incredibly articulate and nuanced observations about modern life, which he really nails. So Larry David was quoted as saying, "I like to be quiet and let people find me rather than having to shout at them." So for Larry David, it looks like it didn't really, well, to me anyway, it didn't feel like reinvention. It felt like a continuation, and I think that's the point. Curb Your Enthusiasm wasn't a stunt, this one-off stunt. It was a series of compound performances and actions and successes, these repeated actions that over time build something smarter and greater than the sum of its parts. Lots of creators chase trends, and it's very easy to do, especially in this world. But Larry was looking for that rhythm, really very much in the early days, there was no marketing push for Curb. They weren't trying to game the algorithm. Um, it was just that relentless repetition, and he would say himself that after a while, anyway, after a number of series, he did really struggle because it was a real weight on him to keep coming up with engaging, funny, and original series, which is why now he's now come to an end. But boy, what a run! So because of that, he's become one of the most recognizable and valuable names in TV. And he never wanted to play the fame game. And it's not luck. That's just this the compounding of quality. Now, take Taylor Sheridan. For many, many years, no one would hand him a production deal. No studios were begging him to build the franchises that he's very well known for now. He would just keep on writing. And over time, his work compounded creatively, commercially. Again, at the start, no red carpets, didn't do much on socials. He wasn't chasing the fame. He just spent all his time grafting, acting. Then at 40, a similar age to Larry actually, he wrote Sicario. And that was that first brick. Then came Hell or High Water, Wind River, it's a great movie. Yellowstone, the series, 1883, 1923, Lawman. He started to build this empire based on authenticity. There's a thread that links all of these shows and movies. And both these men have mastered the most boring superpower in business and in life: consistency. From Sicario to Yellowstone, his fingerprints are instantly recognizable. You know when you're watching something which has been written by Sheridan. It has that feel. The stoic male leads, the power struggles within families, the grit, honor, and these incredible cinematic landscapes. But he doesn't write for everyone, and he's open about this. He isn't adapting. He's building based on what he wants. Sheridan was quoted as saying, "I write movies I want to see. Be honest, and it should probably work out." And actually, I think I agree with that. Just as a general message, if you're lucky enough to be able to create content, do work that you like and that you want to do, be honest about what you're doing, and generally it should just work out. Whatever working out looks like, it should be okay. So the Yellowstone universe didn't explode because of marketing. It grew because of trust. And it was a trust that every new episode would deliver that same level of intensity and soul. And that becomes less risky once you build that rhythm. So as we do in all these podcasts, I try to explain the what. So especially using, if you like, case studies and real people, real stories. But why does this have impact? Why does this work? Why are these people so successful? And so what I like to do is dive into the psychology. And when I was researching, I came up with a couple of relevant principles which I think work for these two cases. The first one being the compound effect. In behavioral psychology, it's called What's they have this theory called the compound effect, and the idea is that small, consistent actions repeated over time lead to disproportionate results, which is incredibly simple, incredibly boring to think about it, really. But it underpins some of the most powerful success stories in history. Um, we are conditioned to look for dramatic moments. We want the big win sometimes, those singular breakthroughs. But I think the best way to operate and to build the reputation that lasts is the reputation that lasts, the reputation that carries weight, the reputation that will open doors. Is to do it repeatedly, is to build it slowly, almost quietly, actually, one decision, action at a time. It's why Warren Buffett famously said that compounding is the eighth wonder of the world. And he wasn't just talking about financial returns. It's the principle of momentum over time, how repeated efforts and patience and consistency can do what intensity and ambition alone can't. So every time you're acting with integrity, you're not just making a good decision. You're sending a signal. Every time you repeat that core value, whether it's your own value or that of your business, you're reinforcing a perception. You're reinforcing what the business is about. Every time you deliver something of quality, you're subtly shaping how people expect you to show up next time. And I think that's the key. It's expectation. Reputation lives in the minds of others, and their expectations are shaped by your actions. Not once, but over time. If you show up with integrity every day, people start to trust you. If you repeat your values consistently, people start to believe you. If you have a product and you're delivering quality again and again, then people have those high standards of you. And that's compounding. Not that flash of attention you get from one impressive move, but that slow, sticky accumulation, which is built in layers. We often say in the PR world, especially when you're say if you're doing a launch of a product or of a business, the worst thing you can do really is do a big splash and a big announcement, get lots of attention, and then think the job is done, and then fall away. That's actually going to have the adverse effect. It's all about being consistent over time, having a long-term plan to eventually either raise your profile or increase sales, or make something happen or change behavior. It doesn't happen in one go. So that's why people like Larry David, Taylor Sheridan have become so trusted in their space. They didn't create just one show or wrote one great script. So they're not this one trick pony. They've done it repeatedly and had a huge amount of discipline to do that. If you just listen to any of their interviews, they find it hard to keep up those standards. And if it was easier, then everyone could do it. But they double down on what they were about, because if they were going to do it, they had to do it the right way. And then actually, if you keep doing that, then audiences and people then start to understand your identity, and they know what to expect, and then they trust you to then deliver on that. And that's how you get followers. So we're in this world of well, in a world that's addicted to reinvention and dopamine hits, and this kind of long game repetition feels quite radical when you compare it to what we all do now, where a lot of people are chasing likes or chasing virality. But as I'm trying to hopefully show you, I think it's probably the best approach to go along the route of consistency and compound actions. So, but reputation also doesn't, it acts like it works well with compounding actions. So I don't think you can build a reputation with one big moment. I don't think that's the way it works. It doesn't spike, but it snowballs. James Clear talks about this in Atomic Habits. Success doesn't come from intensity, it comes from identity. And identity is built through consistent action. But if we go even deeper, I was reading something from psychologist BJ Fogg at Stanford, who created the Fogg behavior model, which suggests that long-term change doesn't come from willpower or motivation. It comes from small behaviors repeated over time in stable environments. Fogg's research shows that tiny habits done regularly anchor identity far more than dramatic one-off actions, which is what I was talking about earlier with various stunts or launches. Then there's Robert Cialdini, who in Influence explained how commitment and consistency are among the most powerful psychological triggers of persuasion and trust. People and brands who act consistently are perceived as more reliable, credible, and easier to predict if it's done over time. Predictability actually breeds safety and comfort. And if you have safety and comfort, then you'll build loyalty. So in neuroscience, this is backed by Hebb's law. Neurons that fire together wire together. Repetition literally rewires the brain, not just in terms of skill, but in terms of how others perceive you. A consistent personal or brand signal strengthens the mental pathway between your identity and then their expectation. So when Sheridan writes another land war and Larry blows up another dinner party, our brains relax. We were expecting that. We know what we're getting, and that trust is neurological. And again, it's built on one tiny repeatable action each time. So I like to sort of towards the end of these podcasts, I like to almost give you some of my thoughts, and I remember I think I heard it on a podcast or maybe read it, but a saying which really stuck with me, which was, "You get better the same way you got sick, slowly." So just as a sickness rarely comes at you fast. It's usually built over moments and in time, and then you start to almost degenerate and feel weaker, and that does take a bit of time. But then don't expect to just get better like that. Everything that happens well and properly happens in staged moments. Generally, obviously, we are talking in averages here. So I know you'll all be able to pull up examples of things that happen very quickly. But if we're talking generally, then I think this is probably the right sentiment. Most people, I think it's human nature, is that we want things to happen fast. We want to go viral. We're built, especially with the likes of TikTok and Instagram, we're built to chase virality, to launch big, to reinvent overnight. But you don't really get great that way. A far better approach is one well-written piece of work, one thoughtful conversation with colleagues or friends, loved ones, uh, one good decision at a time, perhaps sometimes candid truth, and then keep repeating that. Unfortunately, consistency is not sexy, but it's impactful if you stick at it. And so something to think about if you like, and in terms of practically what can you do from this? And the obvious thing would be, what's one small thing you can do every day that reflects the kind of person you're trying to become? Not a huge shift, just something simple, manageable. And manageable is key, actually, and repeatable. But the kind of action and the kind of decision that over time will start to shape how others are going to see you and how you maybe even start to see yourself. So we've identified that reputations aren't built in one go. They're built through patterns, through signals. So you send out again and again, and even when no one's keeping a score. It's how you respond to people. Maybe it's how you prepared, how prepared you are when you walk into a room. Maybe it's saying what needs to be said, or just showing up consistently. So, because over time, these things add up, and you have to have patience to deliver it. But I believe that before you realize it, you've built something that people recognize and then that people will trust. And for me, that's a win. So if you've enjoyed this, then please hit follow wherever you get your podcasts, and speak soon.